What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Week 11 preview show here on the channel. Gonna try something a little bit different this week. Gonna give you guys a whole full episode of my full Week 11 thoughts. Now, we have a few dockets on the schedule for today, but before we get into it, if you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel, please make sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get right into it with the first topic of conversation, the topic that's happening later tonight. The first game of Week 11, Thursday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I've been on record saying that I think the majority of Thursday Night Football games are hot garbage, right? This is one of the rare exceptions. Now, I think not only is this an interesting game because both of these teams are vying for the AFC North title, they're both potential Super Bowl contenders, I would say, but I think this game got a little bit spicier on Sunday when both of these teams took unexpected losses to fellow AFC teams. You know, the Bengals, they lost a very close game with the Texans, a game that honestly I thought was pretty out of reach. They made a good comeback. The Texans were able to kind of shave them off a little bit at the end there. And then the Ravens totally collapsed against the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson and lost the game in heartbreaking fashion. To be completely honest with you, I missed the ending of the game initially. I've since gone back and watched it, and I'm just thinking, how did the Ravens lose that game? How did the Ravens lose that game? So you have two teams competing for their division, two teams that had heartbreaking losses on Sunday. I think they're both going to be pissed off, right? This is going to be a really good Thursday Night Football game. Most games, come on, let's be honest, guys. Thursday night, we're tuning out, right? We are not here to watch Bears-Panthers again. We're not here to watch, whoever else. I think it was Chiefs and Broncos a couple weeks ago. It's not really intriguing. This is an intriguing matchup, and it's one of the few, I guess, really good Thursday Night Football games. Now, the other interesting nugget here, as is with all Thursday night games, is health. Thursday is only, a 3.5, 4 days rest from their last game, which isn't ample time for NFL football players' bodies to, I guess, heal up from their last game. So are we going to see a, less physical version of either of these teams? I personally don't think so. I think the fuel of anger and the competition and the adrenaline is going to be pumping for these guys. But health-wise, I don't think either team's going to be at 100%. We've seen a lot of injuries with the Bengals. I saw T. Higgins was ruled out earlier today. He missed Sunday as well. Sam Hubbard is going to not be 100%, but it looks like he will play. And then the Ravens, I know, are banged up as well, as with Marlon Humphrey. I know he got hurt a while ago, so it'll be an interesting game. I have some predictions here because I have been very keen on the Ravens for a while now. Ever since they played my Seahawks, I've gone and done a deep dive on the Ravens. And this game is in Baltimore, I should mention. And this is, a very interesting game for the Ravens because I think against teams that don't see the Ravens, like the Lions, like my Seahawks, the Ravens are going to just, bend you over, right? You cannot prepare for Lamar on film. You cannot prepare for the offense the way they move. And honestly, their defensive coordinator, he's done a really good job of getting a lot of pressure with not super talented pass rushers. So I think the Ravens, from a game plan perspective, are very difficult to go up against if you don't see them. Now, we've seen it twice with the Browns and with the Bengals earlier in the year where the games are close when people have played the Ravens, right? When you have seen Lamar, when you've gone against Lamar, twice a year, it makes it a little different, right? And especially with, the way that the Ravens offense has changed this year and their defense has changed this year. Having already played the Ravens, I think, is a big advantage for the Cincinnati Bengals. They have film on the Ravens. Now, this is a game earlier in the year where Joe Burrow was not 100%. I think he's more healthy now. I think he's back to being Joe Burrow. And that was a close game, even so. So this will be a very good game. I think the big matchup in this game is to watch out for the Ravens rushing attack. We've seen it early in this year where when the Ravens can run the football, when they can dictate the line of scrimmage, they're going to be dominant, right? I know, Gus Edwards has been getting carries. I think, Keaton Mitchell, I think he is a stud. And I think he needs more carries, 100%. They really went away from him in the last week against the Browns. I didn't understand it. But can the Bengals stop the Ravens rushing attack, which obviously includes Lamar Jackson, right? We can't excuse him from the equation here. I've noticed that, particularly on those inside carries, when their offensive line is able to get that push, when they're able to move the guys off the line of scrimmage, the Ravens are going to just bully people. And I think that's the kind of bully ball mentality that John Harbaugh wants to play. I know Todd Monken's more of a guy that wants to throw the ball down the field. Zay Flowers, he's been quiet for a few weeks now. I wouldn't expect that to continue. I think he's a really good young player. Mark Andrews is obviously going to be very involved. But truthfully, for the Ravens, I would like to see Lamar Jackson make a few more plays, right? Last couple of weeks, it seems like he hasn't made a lot of plays, made a couple of mistakes last week against Cleveland. I'd like to see him make more plays. Now, on the flip side, Joe Burrow. This is a game that I think you really have to win if you're Joe Burrow, if you want to win the AFC North. And I was just in the Bengals stadium, so I can speak to this. Home field advantage for the Bengals is going to be huge, right? And you're not going to get that playing as a wild card team. So this game is so paramount to getting that home field advantage for, maybe a round or two and winning the division, winning the AFC North. This is a huge game. Joe Burrow is going to have to lean on Jamar Chase because, like I said, T. Higgins is out, and that Bengals defense is going to have to be opportunistic, and they're going to have to make plays. This game is in Baltimore. It's a little bit tricky. I would probably lean the Ravens. I'm not exactly sure on the line of this game yet. I haven't checked just yet. I would guess it's about a 2.5, 3-point line for the Ravens. I would say that's probably about right. I would take the Ravens to win 27-24. I think it's a very close game, but I think they're able to run the football well enough. I think they're able to keep the ball, not turn the ball over, and I think that this is a big, big win for the Baltimore Ravens after a very disappointing loss against the Cleveland Browns. All right, another very important game on this weekend is going to be when the Chicago Bears go to visit the Detroit Lions. Now, you might be saying, why is this game important? The Lions are the class of the NFC North, and the Bears are in the basement of not only the division, but also the league, right? Why is this game important? This game is important for one individual, and that individual's name is Justin Fields. Justin Fields finds himself in the last, 8-9 games of the year this year, fighting for his job as the future starter of the Chicago Bears. Now, what do I mean by that, right? He missed the last 4 games with his thumb injury, and Tyson Bagent stepped in, played okay, I suppose, right? But that's not the big story. The big story is not him versus Tyson Bagent. The big story is him versus whoever the Bears get with their multiple high draft selections, right? Right now, it's looking like the Bears are going to own the first overall pick again this year. Now, I don't know what franchise in the history of sports would have back-to-back first overall picks and trade them away both times. I don't think you should do that, right? So if the Panthers end with the first overall pick, they will be taking a quarterback, or else it's malpractice. Let's be honest here, right? Now, the thing about Justin Fields is that he has an opportunity to either cement himself as the temporary starter for the Bears and as AE, these last 8-9 games, or could he make enough of an impression for the Bears to say, oh shit, this is our guy. He is going to be the future of this franchise. Now, I find the second option very unlikely for a multitude of reasons. A, like I mentioned, if the Bears have the first overall pick again this year and they don't pick a quarterback, what are we doing? Right? Actually, what are we doing? That's number one. Number two, Justin Fields has been in the league for 3 years. In those 3 years, we are still questioning whether or not Justin Fields is the guy. A lot of the concerns he had coming into the draft, his, lack of reading defenses, his decision-making, his, shaky accuracy sometimes, those are still prevalent. Now, I understand the situation around Justin Fields is not great. It's not even good, to be honest. The coaching, awful. The skill position players, it's actually not bad. I would say it's actually above average. And the Bears' offensive line isn't good by any means, but it's probably better than you think it is. Regardless, quarterbacks have made more with less. Let's be honest here, right? So you're never going to get the perfect situation around you when you're a quarterback. What I wonder about Justin Fields, though, is if you claim that Justin Fields should be the Bears starter 2024 and beyond, do you understand the financial commitment he will have to get from the Bears, right? Because he's a first-round pick. First 3 years in terms of the Bears franchise are down the toilet, right? Year 4 and year 5, all right, you got that 5th-year option to kick in. You have to make that decision. And then after that, or maybe even before that, you got to extend him. And I don't know if you've seen any of the quarterback contracts. They're not cheap. You're going to have to really shell out some big, big cash for Justin Fields. Now, for a team that isn't good to begin with, to put that much percentage of your cap towards one player, to me, is not a very good way to run a team, right? It's not. I would rather take a chance on the first overall pick, quarterback, second overall pick, whatever the Bears have, which is going to be top 3 at least. Top 3 pick. Take that quarterback. And at the very least, what you're doing is you have a question mark with Justin Fields to begin with. You're going to have a question mark with, Caleb, Drake May, Penix, whoever you draft. But it will be cheaper for multiple years, at the very least. At the very, very least, right? So Justin Fields, I think, is fighting for himself. I don't know if there's a reality in which he's the Bears starter in 2024, because in my opinion, this is the way it's going to go. If Justin Fields kind of falls on his face the second half of the year, Bears will say, all right, well, we have 2 top 5 picks. We're going to take a quarterback. Cool, Justin Fields, you're out. If Justin Fields is awesome these, last 7, 8, 9 games, well, then that just bumps up the trade value for Justin Fields, because I do think there will be a trade market for Justin Fields come draft time. I really do. If Justin Fields is a good quarterback the last 7, 8, 9 weeks, you see the potential with him. I think a team like Atlanta, I think a team like maybe New England could take a flyer on him and give up maybe a low first, high second, whichever. If it's New England, it'll be probably a high second, because I don't think they would give up pick 6, whatever they have. But Atlanta, if Atlanta's picking in the middle of the draft, I could see, Atlanta throwing in a first-round pick for him. Here's the thing. From a perspective of the Chicago Bears' future, I don't think it makes sense to have Justin Fields as a starter for 2024. I really don't. This is a very, very good quarterback draft class. You have, I think, 5 or 6 guys that could legitimately go in the first round, and that could be good in this league. And if you're the Bears, you cannot pass up that opportunity 2 years in a row. So for Justin Fields, he's playing for his future. I don't think necessarily he can save his job as the Bears starter for multiple years, but I do think that he can cement himself as a quality quarterback in the National Football League, and could have a pretty good market come March, April, around the draft. All right, speaking of young, talented quarterbacks, there's another one that I want to talk about, and he is the second overall pick in last year's draft, not the first. The Bears traded. CJ Strouds is legitimately awesome. I mean, legitimately really, really awesome. And there has been some buzz on the Twitter sphere and the social media world about CJ Strouds potentially winning MVP. Now, at first thought, I thought that was pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I thought hey man, he's good, but MVP, we're going too fast here. But then I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, you know what? CJ Strouds might be able to be the best rookie since Jim Brown. Jim Brown is the only rookie to win MVP back in the 50s. Could CJ Strouds be the second? First of all, I will say this would have to be an extremely rare circumstance, right? This would everything would kind of have to go perfect for the rest of the year. Let me say that. But then let me also make the argument that, hey, this year, the MVP frontrunners, there's no clear and obvious choice, right? Mahomes statistically is having one of the worst years of his career, right? Lamar Jackson statistically has been lackluster the last couple of weeks. Jalen Hurts is dealing with a knee injury, and the Eagles are, a run-heavy team, I would say. I'm not going to say that necessarily. But there are not a lot of fantastic, slam dunk MVP candidates today. That could change in a few weeks. As we know, as the playoff push gets underway, the stars really come out, and whoever's going to win MVP kind of showcases themselves. But as of today, there's not really a slam dunk pick for MVP. So if you're CJ Strouds and you're coming in as the second overall pick, you're taking over for a team that was, one miracle play away from being the worst team in football last year, you really are in a position where the Texans are now in the thick of the playoff race, right? They're 5-5. They are very much in contention for the playoff race. I don't think that they'll win the North, but the South, but it's still a possibility, because the Jags looked very lackluster last week. If you're CJ Strouds and you continue to put up these great numbers and you continue to lead this electric offense with, let's be honest, underproven receivers so far in the NFL this year, could he cement himself in that conversation? I think he can. I think the Texans would have to make the playoffs. That's a given. And the MVP is not going to go to somebody who's not making the playoffs. So the Texans would have to win, majority of their last games, make the playoffs. CJ Strouds would have to continue to put up historic rookie numbers. I don't think that he is going to break Justin Herbert's rookie passing touchdown record. It could be. If he gets 30 touchdown passes, that would definitely be Offensive Rookie of the Year caliber season. But MVP, we're kind of looking in the high 30s, 40s range for MVP talks. That's typically how it goes, right? And I'm going to pull up his stats really quick. But again, I do think the Texans would need to make the playoffs. I do think that he would have to have inflated touchdown total, which with the way he's throwing the ball could definitely be. I'm not I'm not arguing against it. So far this season, he's got 15 touchdown passes in his first 10 games, right? It's about 2 a game, let's just say. So if you average that out to 17, that's about 34, 35 touchdown passes a year. Again, that would break the rookie record, and that would get you kind of close to the MVP range. So what would CJ Stroud really have to do to win MVP? I think the only way that he could be a finalist is if the Texans win the South, right? He breaks all the rookie passing records. And in order to be in that same tier with Mahomes and Lamar and Jalen, I think you would have to look at the Texans at the start of the playoffs and be, this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. Fair or not, quarterbacks are judged based off of the team's success, right? They are. Come playoff time, and I know this isn't a regular season award, so I'm not going to talk about the playoffs, but come playoff time, are the Texans a team that can win the Super Bowl? If so, that's extremely unlikely, but if so, we can have a serious conversation about CJ Stroud for MVP. Again, I don't want to project that far, and I don't want to set the expectations too high for CJ Stroud because I think that he is absolutely balling this year, and what the Texans have in him is extremely special. But I want to kind of pepper the MVP talks just a little bit. Just a little bit, I will. But it's possible. It is possible, but I don't think it's very likely, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to go ahead and put the kibosh on the CJ Stroud MVP talks for right now. Speaking of the AFC South, I want to talk about another team. I want to talk about 2 teams, actually. One in the AFC South. I want to talk about the Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. I set the expectations, I think, way too high for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I said in my preseason predictions that they're going to win 14 games. And much of the reason I did that was because I was very, very confident in Trevor Lawrence. Now, truthfully, if you look at Trevor Lawrence's career since being the first overall pick, it's been kind of a disappointment, right? He has not been up to par this year. I will be honest with you. Statistically, Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback by a pretty decent margin this year, right? We can I'm going to give him, a mulligan for his rookie season with Urban Meyer. I will. The first half of last season, he was not good. The second half, he really did turn it on. And I was thinking he was going to ride that momentum into this season and be dominant. And to be honest, the Jaguars' offense is very stagnant. They don't look like a cohesive unit. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like he is, a certifiable top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And their prized acquisition, Calvin Ridley, really has had like 1 or 2 good weeks and hasn't been great since. Now, you can blame Calvin Ridley. You can blame Trevor Lawrence. Doesn't matter, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence is in a really good spot, and he's underperforming. To be completely honest, he's underperforming, right? The defense is getting lots of turnovers. The running game is good with Travis Etienne. He's got, 2 or 3 really good receivers. He's got a good tight end. He's got a pretty good offensive line. He's got a really good head coach and play caller. So, work with me, Trevor. Like, what's going on here? This guy, when he was coming into the draft, was billed as the same tier as like Peyton Manning and John Elway and Andrew Luck. And he hasn't been that, right? He hasn't been that. And I wonder if maybe he's a bit of a fraud. I don't know. I'm not going to say that just yet, but I think we might be on Trevor Lawrence fraud watch, unfortunately. So Trevor Lawrence, I think he really needs to pick it up for the Jaguars because they are a team that should be, I think, winning a lot more games than they are right now. Let's be honest, right? They should have won. To get absolutely pantsed by the 49ers. Not that I think that the 49ers are a bad team. We all know they're a good team. But, I mean, you got fucking pantsed by the 49ers on all levels, right? If you are as good as you say you are, that game should have been a lot closer. That was a home game as well. Like, how are you going to let the 49ers come into your home stadium and just completely just undress you, right? 31 points. It should have been more than that. Brock Purdy looked like prime Peyton Manning. Christian McCaffrey actually didn't score. That was the one thing you did do. But, I mean, the 49ers defense looked like the 85 Bears. I mean, they looked out of sync. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. The pass protection was getting flimsy. Trevor Lawrence didn't look like he knew where his outlets were. It was a mess. And I think I was too high on the Jaguars, potentially. And that's probably a byproduct of being too high on Trevor Lawrence. Because this season, he has really not impressed me at all. Statistically, he is lagging way behind where I thought he was going to be. And especially when you compare him to a guy like I just mentioned with CJ Stroud in the division, it's kind of concerning, right? And then you go to a team that is really fraudulent in the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the Bills losing 5 of their first 10 games is, I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. Um, Now they fired Ken Dorsey as the offensive coordinator, and fair or not, he was scapegoated, right? He was the scapegoat for the struggles on offense. And I'm just curious as to why the Bills don't look like the Bills. Like they lacked attention to detail on Monday night. They had the fumble, they had the turnover, they had James Cook botching the ball again. The defense looked out of sorts. They had the play that lost it for him was the 12 men on the field. I mean, that's just coaching, right? That's just like a bad team. Bad teams don't execute those big plays, and that's what the Bills were doing, right? So they just look bad. And I want to, for a second, talk about Josh Allen, because the primary culprit for, I guess, this whole thing on Twitter has been Josh Allen's turnovers. And I want to agree, but I also don't, because some of his turnovers are just really bad luck, right? I still think Josh Allen is a phenomenal quarterback. I'm still going to have him as the second best quarterback in the NFL. And I will say, though, that the Bills are kind of falling apart because offensively speaking, you have Stephon Diggs and a bunch of nobodies, right? I don't think James Cook is who he was built to be. The offensive line isn't great. Gabe Davis are still trying to make him a wide receiver too, and it hasn't worked. So the offense is concerning. The defense is injured to all shit right now, but they're also underperforming as well. And you've seen the power dynamic shift this year from the Bills being the heavyweights to the Dolphins being the heavyweights. And while I'm not going to just give the Dolphins a division yet, because the Bills did beat the Dolphins early in the year, and I have to acknowledge that, I will say that they seem like a much more complete team right now. They seem like a team that can win in multiple ways. They seem like a team that doesn't fall apart in games, and they're well coached. I think the Dolphins are one of the most well coached teams in the NFL, and the Bills, a lot of people thought that they were Super Bowl teams this year, and I argued against that, but I did think that they were still going to win the East. I did think that they were going to be playoff contenders, and they are right now not even in the playoffs. Do I think that holds at the end of the year? Probably not. I think they'll sneak in as probably the 6th or 7th seed, especially with a lot of other teams in the AFC kind of faltering. But what a disappointing, decline of the Buffalo Bills, going from the AFC Championship game in 2020 to just a continual decline year after year after year after that. So, I don't think that the Bills are going anywhere in terms of the Super Bowl. I also think that the little contentious beef that Stephon Diggs has with the Bills is annoying, and if he really bought that action, then he should leave Buffalo. Might be his last year in Buffalo. It's just annoying, and the Bills, I think, are continually overrated. I'm not going to call Josh Allen overrated because I think he's not working with a whole lot right now, but the Bills and possibly the Jaguars are frauds as of right now. Another interesting storyline going into this week, I think, is the race of the NFC West. Now, the Seahawks and 49ers are currently both tied at a 6-3 record for the lead in the NFC West, and they haven't played each other yet this year, so they are stonewall tied. But this week, they're playing up against 2 non-playoff teams, and then the following week, Thanksgiving, they play each other. And I want to talk about the NFC West race and how this could play out for the rest of the year and give my predictions on it, right? So you guys know I'm a Seahawks fan, so take anything I say with a grain of salt, but don't, because I'm right. This week, the Rams are going to play the Seahawks. Now, the Rams have kind of been a constant thorn in the ass of the Seahawks for many years. Sean McVay just kind of knows how to play the Seahawks. Even in the years where the Rams weren't the best, like last year, it was a close game. It was closer than it probably should have been. And Matthew Stafford is coming back on Sunday. He absolutely killed the Seahawks the first week of the season. The Seahawks had no answers. But I think it's also fair to say at the same time, the Seahawks were not at full strength, right? Charles Cross got hurt. Devin Witherspoon didn't play in that game. Jamal Adams didn't play in that game. We hadn't acquired Leonard Williams yet. And Jackson Smith-Njigba for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year was not really an involved part of the offense. So I think the Seahawks are a much different team. I think the Rams are a much different team. They've gone 2-6 since that Week 1 meeting. And the Seahawks have had, pretty good success. They've gone 6-2. So you're looking at the Seahawks, and I think this is a game where if you don't win, you get in really big trouble from the NFC West, because the Seahawks' next opponents are the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Eagles. I mean, that is an absolute gauntlet of a 4-week schedule. So the Seahawks need to win the quote-unquote easy games against non-playoff teams, which we know division games are never easy, but this is as easy as it's going to get for the next 5 weeks. On the flip side, the 49ers are coming off of a absolute pantsing of the Jacksonville Jaguars after losing 3 straight. So the 49ers kind of shot themselves in the foot a few times, but they're kind of getting back into it. They're not tied with the Seahawks, right? They're playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and truthfully, I don't think that that's going to be much of a contest at all. Baker, for what he's done this year is pretty good, but I don't think he's going to be able to compete with the 49ers much at all. I think they're going to pants the Buccaneers. So then, assuming that both teams win, which it's more of a guarantee for the 49ers, but whatever. Assuming both teams win, you then have to go to Thanksgiving Day against the 49ers in Seattle. That's an important detail. In Seattle. Now, do the Seahawks have a chance on Thanksgiving? I think they do. The problem is that last season, the 49ers and Seahawks played 3 times, and 3 times the 49ers absolutely dominated the game. They did. And if you're the Seahawks, you don't have Geno Smith playing the best football of his career. He was mostly playing great in the first half of last season. Ever since the second half of last season, he's been aggressively mid, is what I'll say, right? The Seahawks' run game is also too inconsistent to just pound the football down the 49ers' throats, although I do like what I've been seeing from Zach Charbonnet. And they have yet to have an answer for Kyle Shanahan's offense, especially with guys coming back like Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. The 49ers look to be at the peak of their powers against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I don't think that the 49ers will continue to just pants the Seahawks because historically speaking, Pete Carroll is much better against Kyle Shanahan than Kyle Shanahan is against Pete Carroll. However, I don't know that the Seahawks are going to win this game on Thanksgiving. I don't know. And looking towards the rest of the NFC West race, the 49ers don't exactly have a cakewalk schedule either. I mean, they have to play some really good teams, including the Baltimore Ravens. But if you really think about the nitty-gritty of the division and who's going to get that, number 2, number 3 seed in the NFC, it becomes so important for the Seahawks to win these games and to win against the 49ers and at least split the series, right? I really do think that the Seahawks can win the West if they split with the 49ers. If not, though, I really don't think there's much of a chance. So this Thanksgiving game will probably determine the division, to be completely honest with you. If the 49ers win, I'll say, okay, the 49ers are going to win the West for the year. If the Seahawks win, I'll say there's a chance. There is a chance, depending on how we play against Dallas, there is a chance that the Seahawks can win the NFC West because at that point, the Seahawks would be 8-3, assuming they beat the Rams, right? So my prediction is still that the 49ers win the division. But Thanksgiving is going to be a huge, huge game to determine if that is a reality or not. And then the last thing I'll say about Week 11 is that we finally have a phenomenal Monday Night Football game. Give it up for the league. They finally did it. We have the Super Bowl rematch from last season, the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. I am super, super stoked for this game. I really am. I think that this is a game, though, that is going to go very much in the Eagles' favor because I think the Chiefs are a lot weaker than they were last year. They seem like the cracks in the armor are a little bit bigger, right? And the Eagles, I think that they are going to be pissed off after that Super Bowl loss, and I think the Eagles are going to win. Now, again, I don't need to tell you why this is such an intriguing game. Super Bowl matchup, Mahomes versus Hurts. We got the Kelsey brothers going at it. It's all the way around awesome, right? We get this. However, I think that after this week, we are going to see the Eagles as the overwhelming Super Bowl favorites because of the way that they're going to dominate the Kansas City Chiefs. I am predicting probably a 10-point or more victory from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that is the likelihood that we get, right? Jalen Hurts has been playing really good football. The Eagles have been running the ball extremely well. And Kansas City's passing attack doesn't look as dominant this year. They don't. I wonder what it really is because the only player they really lost was Juju Smith-Schuster. Kadarius Toney's been a non-factor. MVS has basically been a non-factor. The only real, threat that the Chiefs have in the passing game, sans Travis Kelce, would be the guy. Would be Rashee Rice. And even him, he's not, an elite receiver. Now, the weakness of this Philadelphia Eagles team is their secondary. And I think teams that have phenomenal receivers and more than one, phenomenal pass catcher are going to be able to take advantage. But I just don't know if the Eagles defense is going to be too affected by these Chiefs receivers. I don't. Patrick Mahomes is still obviously amazing, and I know he'll make something work. But I wonder if the Eagles are going to kind of stand on the business, and I wonder, though, if the Eagles are really going to be able to stand up to the bully that is the Kansas City Chiefs and be able to win this game. So I think that this is going to be a great game. I think the Eagles are going to prove themselves as the Super Bowl favorites. And, later in the week, I think I'll talk about Super Bowl picks and MVP picks and everything like that. But as of right now, the Eagles are going to be my favorite. I would go ahead and put your bets in for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl because after this game, I think the Eagles are going to be the overwhelming favorites to make it to the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl. So that is kind of my thoughts on Week 11. I appreciate you guys watching and tuning in, and I will go ahead and talk to you guys in the next video. Peace out.